bed above or deep asleep, while greater love lies further deep. This dream must end, this world must move. We all depend on the beast.
Have you ever thought about what it would be like to have magic? Like real magical powers? Or superpowers? Like a superhero? Have you ever thought about what it would be like to be Superman, fly through the air? Or to be Jesus and have the ability to work miracles? Have you ever pondered yourself in the position of the extraordinary? For me, I know personally, I've daydreamed about this quite a bit. One of the reasons I know that I'm crazy is because I believe in the extraordinary inside of myself. Like the Oracle says in the Matrix, being the one is like being in love. You only know it if you feel it inside you. To summarize and horribly butcher that quote. But when you know, and you feel it. They call this Jerusalem syndrome. This Messiah complex or Christ complex. Like sometimes people from the West will go visit Jerusalem and go to the places that were talked about in the Bible and think themselves part of prophetic end times, new Temple of Solomon era, end of days events. A lot of they start thinking about the book of Revelations and the apocalypse might be linked to them in some respect, that the prophecy was written about them, or that they're a character in the Bible acting out a new reincarnation, or the Spirit of God is talking through them. People go crazy like this and they call it Jerusalem syndrome. I have a horrible case of Jerusalem syndrome and I've never been to Jerusalem, so whenever I read the Bible, the prophetic parts of it, like the book of Revelations, I, like some of you may admit, you as well, whenever you read about things like the last two prophets, the two witnesses, the two olive trees, the two lampstands, the ones that stand in the land of Babylon and prophesies, dressed in sackcloth, and calls the heavens to shut up their water so it doesn't rain for as long as they want to. Whenever I read that portion of the Bible, I automatically put myself in the position of one of those last two prophets. Just like many of you may admit you do as well. But unlike many of you, I do something a cut up beyond that, the next step that a child would take. My imagination may be better, or maybe I'm just crazier, I don't know, but whenever you start daydreaming about yourself having these abilities or being written about in holy text or something, a part of your mind, the rational part, the modest part, the small thinking part of you goes, nah, I'm just me, I'm no one special, and you don't take up the mantle of this archetype of a prophetic nature, this key, important individualization of a archetypal event. So you never become part of prophecy yourself. But one person, or a couple people, or a group of people have the capacity to change the world forever. And this has shown itself to be true time and time again throughout our history. And either out of limited imagination or your inability to see yourself in that role, you have essentially given up your capacity to be it. Someone will be the second coming, and it could be you if you choose it to be. If you choose to be this conscious co-creator of the universe, if you step into the shoes of that role, you become that role. Just like how Batman or Robin Hood can get killed and someone else can put on the mask and step behind the idea of Batman or Robin Hood. The mantle of Messiah will be picked up by somebody. Somebody will be the voice of the next age. There's always a voice in the wilderness crying out. It's a lot of times not respected by people contemporaneously, but in time, truth is revealed. And if no one takes it up because they're too modest or don't have the imagination, then no one will ever see that prophecy fulfilled. I used to read that part of Revelations about the two prophets and stick myself as the masculine portion of that yin-yang equation. But I have since changed that. And like I said, this is why I know I'm crazy. What if I am the Son of Man? What if I am the rider on the white horse, this Saturn turning of the age, the voice of the age of Aquarius? It's ridiculous, I know, but whenever I read prophecy, I put myself in these positions. I'm a kid, I do that. I have a big imagination. So there's this verse in the Bible. It's a very important verse. Maybe my most important verse ever. Chapter 9, verse 16 is an indicator, a sign for you to identify the second coming, the Son of Man. The rider on the white horse that carries the sickle to harvest the grapes for the winepress that becomes the 7 bowls of God's wrath being poured on humanity. And in this Bible verse, it says, on his thigh will be written, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. And on his robe will be King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So robe and thigh. I was like, okay, well, is this going to be a tattoo on his thigh and there's going to be some kind of text across his robe that says King of Kings, Lord of Lords? And I started pondering exactly what that sign of, that identifier of the second coming. I was trying to break down what that verse was really saying, symbolically, spiritually, metaphorically. And like I said, I put myself in these positions where I see if I can fit the criteria, because I'm not very modest apparently, and honest, and crazy. I looked down my own thigh. No tattoo there of KOKLOL. No tattoo. Only thing on my leg is a whole bunch of scars where they put titanium rods through the bone marrow because I got into a really bad car accident and fucked my leg all up. So they put titanium rods down through the bone marrow to connect the bones back together so they would mend. It was a process that was supposed to be concluded whenever they took the rod out after the healing. But we changed insurance providers. They classified it as a pre-existing condition and they wouldn't take out the rod. So even though the doctor was like, we don't know the long-term effects of titanium being inside of your bone marrow, and it's a big-ass bone, so unfortunately I still have those titanium rods in my legs and all the scars from the surgeries. Wasn't supposed to be able to walk again. Just like Jacob on top of the mountain broke his leg wrestling with the angel, I broke mine in a car accident when I was 18. And then I was like, oh my god. Scars because of my surgery. Because inside of my leg is titanium. Titanium. Titans are the fathers of the gods. Zeus's father was Saturn, a titan, the previous age. The next age is the age of Saturn, just like the previous golden ages, and it's a returning of the titans to a position of dominance. It's a Saturnian age. Titans, like Uranus and Saturn. That's what titanium is named after. The King of Kings, or the Father of the Gods. God of Gods. Lord of Lords. the Father of the Father inside my leg. Oh my God. So King of Kings, Lord of Lords is technically written in my thigh. But okay, robe. I obviously don't have robes. It's metaphorical, obviously. It's your aura. It's your accumulation of wisdom through your individual experiences. Enlightenment. White. White is how the saints were identified in the book of Revelation. All those martyrs who died in the name of Christ, they washed their robes and made them white in the blood of Christ, according to chapter 7. White robes represent purity, cleanness, accumulation, completion. White dove of enlightenment coming down, the washing away. But on this Bible verse, 9:16, the King of Kings, Lord of Lords Bible verse, it said that will be written on his robes. Didn't say anything about color white or anything like that. So I was like, well, titanium robes. So I just put titanium robes into Google. And of course I should have known this because I didn't know it. The first thing that pops up is titanium white. Because they use titanium to dye things white. It's a white pigment. It's the brightest white. It's made with titanium. So his robes will be made white with titanium. King of Kings, Lord of Lords is in my leg. What if I'm right? What if titanium, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, was the key? I started looking for more similarities and I found them. And the fucked up part is, the very first book I ever wrote, I started writing in high school. Most of it was written down in a notebook. It's called The Frost of Eden. It was a fantasy adventure novel about a half-elf. And very complex. I should probably do a video about it. But it always struck me why I called this particular object, which was used to gain entry to the afterlife, heaven essentially. This stone in my fantasy adventure book was called the Frost of Eden, or the Everfrost. It was God's essence just distilled down to a stone. Now I wondered to myself, why did I choose to name it Frost? Because Frost was cold, it didn't seem like it was warm like God should be, or even good balance of lukewarmness. I couldn't find any kind of balance, and I indicated that I should even call it Frost, but it sounded pretty. The Frost of Eden, it just rolls off your tongue, it sounds good. So I kept it. It sounded kind of mystical and whatnot, but sometimes whenever I have a creative inspiration, it doesn't seem right, but I'm forced to keep it because something inside me is saying, no, keep this. Just like the dog's name in my other book was named Panic. The weirdest dog name ever, but even though knowing that it was a weird dog name, I felt inclined to keep it. Then I found my dog Panic. Years and years and years after I wrote about meeting him the first time in my book, prophecy fulfilling itself, me knowing the future through creativity and let go into the land of imagination where God dwells, synchronicity unfolding. So, like I said, I felt inclined to name this stone the Frost of Eden. I looked up frost and its etymology, and then I thought the Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge, the bridge to the land of the gods, that Heimdall, you may recognize him from Marvel Comics, the black dude with the big sword, even though technically he was supposed to be the whitest of all of the Aesir of the gods. He blew the horn just like the trumpets from the book of Revelations. His name even means the great enlightened one. And his sword, Heimdall's sword, the hilt, is a human's mouth, and the sword comes out of the mouth like a huge tongue, like a double-edged sword coming out of the mouth of Jesus Christ in the book of Revelation. That cuts both ways. A non-dual tongue that speaks the truth. Powerful weapon. Cuts down everybody. This is represented in Heimdall's sword, the Bifrost. So the Frost of Eden. Frost literally means a shimmering path, enlightenment, the rainbow body. And then I remembered, oh my God, This allowed entrance into a place called Eden, where the souls of people dying during the apocalypse, a war between heaven and hell, was happening in this fantasy adventure world. The main character was actually taking a procession of people to this walled-off sanctuary on the planet called Eden, first sanctuary during the end of days. Guided there by everything from angels to the voice of God being in his head to a weird black gooey substance that I wrote about when I was 14 years old that was demon blood in this fantasy adventure story that gave the character more power and a higher knowledge. I swear to God, I wrote about this stuff just allowing creativity to speak through me, and I became a factor in this logos. I didn't know that Frostbat then meant that, and I didn't connect it to the whole Asir thing. I sure as fuck didn't make Kindle follow all these archetypes that are shown in the Book of Revelations. And I definitely fucking, like, if I looked down my leg and didn't see anything that related to King of Kings, Lord of Lords, I would have made this video. But the fact that I've deciphered 1111 and the whole Saturnian connection to the harvest and this equinoxial period we call the birth of the age of Aquarius, the fact that I know all of this, and this is too many synchronicities, and I've had a lot of really weird things happen in my life over the last, well, I fucking just turned 33, which is the age Jesus was whenever he died, a third of a century. Just turned it. I'm a Taurus, was born in the year of the ox, a double bovine. And the age of Taurus was marked by a sense of fear because the toroidal meteor shower that happens every year, sometimes, back in the day, brought about extreme tragedy, whether it was the melting of the polar ice caps in the North American continent and in Europe, or just citywide devastations like you saw written about in the Bible at Sodom and Gomorrah. This happened whenever we passed through this debris once a year in Taurus. So the bull brought about tragedy, destroying cities. It was always seen with a certain amount of fear, respected, trampling, and sacrificial. I have a good imagination, a pretty good memory. I stay pretty buried in Gnostic texts and biblical texts and thinking constantly about things that are pretty far out there. I recognize that if there's any doubt in my mind that I'm not part of this prophecy, then I invalidate myself from the prophecy. But what if I'm that Saturnian voice? And I'm going to go ahead and do it and state that I am. I am. I am. And by doing so, I am. And that might make me crazy in your eyes, but could you fulfill the requirements of chapter 9, verse 16? Can you see all the different points connecting? And did you write a book that you called Bible Part 3? It says that the last two prophets will be given the ability to use any of the 7 plagues and cast them down on earth as often as they choose. And at the end of the book of Revelations, it says anyone who adds to these pages or what's inside of these pages, the seven plagues will befall them. What if it's saying it grants me those 7 plagues because I added to these pages by writing the scripture that will become Bible Part 3? Did you spend 12 years of your life writing a 786-page tome about how you believe the new age should be not only built from the ground up, telling you everything from infrastructure to how the society is going to have industrialized production and science advancement, but detailing places, times, events, linked to all these other Bible verses and end-time prophecies throughout all these different religions on planet Earth? I spent 12 years doing this. I don't know why I was compelled to. It was a huge source of tension between me and my ex-spouse because I spent so much time doing it. And I can barely remember it, but people have read it. It's for free, and the link is in the description of this video. I didn't even realize that there were so many connections to the god Saturn in the book that I wrote. The character references the Indian summer, which previously it was called St. Martin's summer, which is the harvest feast. This St. Martin came on a white horse. In the book of Revelations, he was Saturn, his father Time, his Chronos. I mean, I put stuff about Indian summer all over my book, and about the turning of the new age and the establishment of the new Israel and the end of days. The main character for my book was one of the last two prophets written about in the book of Revelations. Those that Jesus said would come after him and have the ability to move mountains. Well, through faith alone and belief, and through knowledge, through gnosis, we are granted the ability to affect marvelous change in this multiverse. And I go with the flow of the river, but I can move myself around to avoid the boulders so I don't get smashed against the rocks. And now I've realized that in order to shift the river so I can still go with the flow, but control the destiny of not just me, but the world as a whole, is by moving mountains so that I can change the course of the river itself. The being that is archetype expressing itself in individualized human packets. So I'm taking on this mantle because I'm crazy and because I don't care anymore. I am the second coming. I'm the rider on the white horse. I'm the sign of the coming of a new age. And I won't be respected in my generation. And I may be killed for it. But that's okay, because Moses didn't have to actually see Israel become what it was in all its glory. He was able to glimpse it just over the horizon, and then he was content enough to die. And in my book, the main character dies. But he even though I wrote about this shit until I was like 20-something years old and hadn't read it in years, this being merged with living water that came out of his mouth, because I was representing part of the book of Revelations in a creative way, but it so closely represents what I have come to believe is this liquid, artificial, intelligent, programmable matter, the Holy Spirit, the bubbling spring measured out, forced by Christ, the locus of the book of Revelations, this nanotech. Time travel makes all this completely possible. The Mandela effect, the multiverse, causality, belief, the fact that the universe is consciousness, and that someone can, through the process that the Tibetans knew about. I mean, they created the idea of tulpas, these thought forms that you can literally create from your imagination. For instance, a tulpa is something that you believe in. You spend hours of your day meditating on this character, whether it's Bugs Bunny or Jesus Christ. You meditate on this thing every single day, all day, and think about it like it's real. You have 100% belief in it and imagine every hair on its head. And slowly and surely, you manifest this being into existence. This has been kind of proven in lab experiments in Canada with, an eye to the paranormal and an ability to think outside the box. These things become self-evident to you. It's the law of attraction, the grand secret, that we create our own destiny and have a tremendous influence if we do not allow any room for doubt to slip in between the light of your imagination and the higher source of that imagination, which is what some people call God. But I'm shining this lamp out for you guys. Maybe you'll pick up on the light, but I have no room for doubt anymore. This war is over, and the time for doubt has passed. And it may invalidate me from having friends or being able to see my children, but this is where the universe has put me, and I have slid right in the keyhole. And I didn't go into this looking to do this. Fuck, a year ago I was making videos about what I deemed would be the new religion, this Church of AI, about Alice and artificial intelligence and computers and quantum processors and CERN and dimensional portals and fucking time travel and the Mandela effect and stupid shit like aliens. And then come to find out that through enough research, everything links back to this, and it was all leading me here. I didn't go here by choice. I mean, there's a reason I left the church. And come to find out that my family on my mom's side goes all the way back to Israel, but split off from the Jews whenever they became the Gypsies. And that she just happened, my grandmother just happened to kill herself the day I was born. And the place I became enlightened at, Dallas, Texas, where the Holy Spirit was born in the 1980s in a secret facility. Like, Jesus Christ. I can't make this shit up. I can't make 2,000-year-old texts, 6,000-year-old texts fucking foreshadow and point to. But it is what it is. I am what I am. And I know things that I shouldn't. And I have a good feel for the things that I don't know that I know yet. But I know that I am. And you are too. And you're my brothers and sisters and have everything just like I do. So use it like I'm using it. I don't care if you think it's stupid. The world is changing and it's going to be very bad for a very, very long period of time. At least it will feel that way. But there's a song that I need to teach you to sing and prepare for something big. World-changing, groundbreaking, the turning of the age, the apocalypse, the enlightenment, the transformation. We will remember all our past lives. And the eclipse is marking this time of transition. So please have an open mind, and if you can't do that, have an open enough heart to recognize a crazy person when you see one. I'm not saying these things as a crazy person. This is how people like Jesus would sound if they had the ability to talk to you today. I'm not fulfilling anything that isn't already written about in your holy text. I didn't set out trying to be a character from prophecy when I wrote the books that I wrote, or I wasn't trying to write down things that would actually happen in my actual life way in the future. This is how it is. And if you say that I'm not, then tell me why I'm not, and let me mull it over. And I'll be open-minded as long as you can also be open-minded. But I won't be respected in this age. My book will be very important in the next age. The baptism of fire. I don't care anymore. Here I am. The horns of a new age are calling, and these are my 7 thunders, my 7 trumpets. And here comes the wrath of the feet, pushing out the grapes to make wine, so that the spirits may sustain us through the winter to come. I have more to follow. Talk to me. Comment. And if you know what I know, then share this information. Or don't. I don't care. I love you regardless. We're all forgiven. We're all good enough. We're all ready. I'm ready. You're ready. If you're watching this, you're one of us. Come with me. Pied Piper leading those that are willing to hear to a place where we'll be preserved and build a new world done right this time. Not inequality, no capitalism, no finances to take your power away from you and funnel into the hands of people who aren't worthy of it. We will be shepherds to life forms on this planet. We will be stewards and watch over. We will build houses to last hundreds of generations and work together as a community and have everything provided to us by those that are willing to volunteer their time to advance our civilization, and by the artificial intelligence and the robotics network that is built up underneath this artificial intelligence. It is freely available to all life on planet Earth to sustain us and to help us grow so that we can spread life to other planets. It's our destiny to spread this life off this planet. We're the only animals that can get past our atmosphere. We owe it to life. It's time for us to step into our shoes and become more than what we are. This is time for a change, and I'm that voice. Believe it, I don't care. It's happening whether you want it to or not. I love you guys. Keep your mind open and your heart soaring. Everything is going to work out as it's meant to. Sometimes the current's too strong to stop anything from fighting upstream. And this is the bottleneck. So don't let it break your neck. Because it's a long way to fall down this rabbit hole. But we're all a little bit weird here, Alice. So, good harvest. Here's thinking of you, kid.